Okay, it's live.
Madam Mayor, it's 6 o'clock and we are live.
Thank you, everyone. I'd like to call this Tuesday, February 2nd, regular City Commission meeting to order and ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Mayor Pam Triola. Vice Mayor Andy Amoroso.
Yes.
Commissioner Scott Maxwell.
Here.
Commissioner Carla Bloxman.
Here.
Commissioner Herman Robinson.
Here.
Thank you.
If everyone would please rise for the invocation led by Commissioner Bloxman.
Today, may we be open to others' ideas and beliefs, respectful of our differences, not threatened by them. May we grow in understanding of our own motives, knowing that people often act out of their own fears. May we be a force for replacing fear with insight, helping us all to be patient and kind as we talk. Strength, real strength, can always find compromise. Working together, may we find a common ground, enable us to move forward with a shared purpose. May we see what is truly important and what unites us. Focus on that to banish any roadblocks of ego and fear. Today, may we be open to each other's ideas and beliefs. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Robinson, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you both very much. Okay, any additions, deletions, or reordering, Madam City Clerk?
No, Madam Mayor.
Seeing there are none, we'll move on to our first item, a presentation by Nicole Patterson, principal of North Grade Elementary.
Hello, how are you?
Well, hey.
Okay, so let me see if I'm going to be able to do this. Okay. Can you guys see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay, welcome. I'm excited to be here. I don't like the circumstances like this, but you know, we're getting through it and making the best we can, just like everybody else. But of course, I'm Nicole Patterson, the principal at North Grade in Lake Worth on K Street. We are a Title I school. We were opened in 1926. The original building was demolished and replaced in 1999. We do have 43 classrooms in our main building, 17 concretables, a media center, 4 computer labs, science lab, art music room, parent resource room. I have 12 Google certified teachers. All classrooms have a smart board, and every student, of course, since we've been going through COVID, it does now have their very own laptop, so one-to-one devices. I can't really brag about the 12 Google certified staff members because I think at the end of this pandemic, at the end of this year, I can probably say my whole staff will be Google certified because we have done a plethora of training over this year. So we're dual language. This year we went to 8th grade, K through 8th. So we're super excited about that. Our middle school is very little, but we're progressing and hopefully we will grow. We have a small gifted cluster, and then we have our general ed classrooms that also have ESE and our ESOL students in it. We also have 2 units that are intellectually disabled, which means we are a cluster site for neighboring schools that have students that are IND. They are bused in to our school. So we have a primary and an intermediate unit with the disabled students there. Student demographics this year, we have about 700 and, well, right now it's about 23 students that we have on campus, 6, not on campus, but enrolled. 67% are Hispanic, 13% are Black, 14% white, 6% other. Our free and reduced lunch, actually, when I did this PowerPoint in November, it was 77%. I checked on it today and it's up to 81%. So our free and reduced lunch seems to be increasing all the time. Of course, last year, you know, we didn't have grades. We do anticipate that there will be grades this year. We are very nervous. We were set to have a great year last year. Those fifth graders that were pretty much carrying us have now gone on to middle school, but we're a little bit nervous what this year with, of course, we have a lot of students right now, about 50% of our population are still virtual. And unfortunately, it's the students that probably need to be on campus the most. So hopefully we just did finish our diagnostic testing, which is kind of an indicator of how we'll do on the actual FSA. And we just finished that on Friday. Results from that will be out in the next week or two. We are hopeful. We have starting our full-fledged tutoring program right now. We're doing virtual tutoring, in-school tutoring, after school, before school. So we're hoping we're reaching those students that have obviously had their COVID learning slide. So I think one of our major things during COVID is that we are staying positive. We are encouraging and staying positive. We are single school, climate and behavior, show respect, act responsible, be kind. We're doing a lot of SEL every morning. We are on the morning announcements, just pretty much having wonderful Wednesdays, terrific Tuesdays. We're seeing a lot of students that need some emotional support this time. So that's been a big focus for us right now. We're doing Reading Plus, tutorial for a low 25%, iReady, Success Maker. So these are some of our computer programs that we have in place that students can do at home, whether they're virtual or in school. That's kind of keeps them focused academically. We have support staff that right now, I have a support staff that is basically in everybody's reading block. Some of them go on and pull out the virtual kids and they do it virtually. They meet with these students in small groups. Some are in person, but every classroom, I have a support staff pretty much in every reading block on my entire campus, whether they're pulling students virtually or in person. After their standards-based instruction, they pull on groups. We've done a lot of virtual parent trainings, parent universities, curriculum nights, trying to reach parents of how they can help their children on the computer without actually having them in the building. So that's been a challenge, but we're trying to get the virtual trainings up and running. We've done 2 so far. Reading Plus, I think that's a repeat of above, is one of our tutorial programs that we do before and after school. We are still trying to the best that we possibly can safely have some extracurricular activities. We do a virtual band, a virtual news team that meets every day at 3 o'clock after school. We do a virtual chorus. We have a Special Olympics sponsor, and Special Olympic is still going on all over the county. They do it social distancing. District 14 is still, they've done Shop with the Cop and done a shoe drive, come with Jacob Shoes in partnership, gave our students new shoes. They're going to do the No Place for Hate. So we're trying to keep the normalcy going right now in our school safely. Clubs that we do offer normally when COVID is not in, which the Art Club, Chess Club, Green Club, Garden, hopefully will resume when I guess our life resumes. Our partnerships and grants, the Palm Beach County Food Bank, Back to Basics. We have an attorney that has donated holiday gifts and cash donations, gift cards to our children, Believers Church, Journeys Church. Jacob Shoes gave new shoes to all our students. District 14 backpack, summer slide program with the Pew Grant. I'm sure I forgot some in there, but I have to say, since August, the community, the Lake Worth community, Palm Beach County has embraced, I know Lake Worth, and we're constantly having people call us and see what our students need, if they can donate anything. So I do have to say that in light of everything that's going on right now, the giving spirit is so much alive, and I'm so thankful for that. Also, there's partnerships there that we hope to continue when we move on. Challenges, of course, I'm sure you're going to hear it from all the schools, is virtual learning versus hybrid teaching. It's difficult. I don't think people realize that what's going on in the classrooms right now is not so much a difficult teaching. It's think about when you go outside with a mask on to a grocery store and you're only in there an hour. Think about these teachers that are talking with a mask on for 6.5 hours a day. They're eating lunch with their classes. Their fine arts are pushed in, so they're never taking their mask off. So by the end of the day, they're exhausted, they're oxygen deprived, they have headaches. So that's been a barrier. And not that they mind, they're not complaining about wearing the mask. We know we have to do it, but it's a hard job. So we've always said at North Grade, one of our barriers is the 3 schools in one. It's hard to balance the 3 programs and keep them all running with fidelity. Our learning gains for our lowest students is difficult without COVID. Now with COVID, it's difficult. We have a high number of students new to the country. Our attendance has always been an issue, proficiency. Pre-K, lack of pre-K in our school has always been an issue in the transient population. That's kind of some of our barriers that we deal with. Opportunities and how we see kind of our way of rising our school up is Google Classroom and resources. I tell the teachers as soon as we know all this like the back of our hand and we're going to be pros at it is when we're all going to come back to school. Students, our opportunities, if our students get back to school and we get them in school safely, I think we're going to be on our way. That's half the battle right there, is getting all the kids here. They all have computers, so we're doing great there. And we have to meet the needs of these ESOL students. Ensure the right interventions are in place. That's really difficult because you have a group of students with all different needs and we only have so many resources. Oral language is big with our students, and just a plethora of community involvement right now, which has been wonderful, but parent involvement, we really would like to see that increase. And we'd like to do a summer program. Last year, we've done a summer program with our non-English speaking students. It was just the newcomers. And we did it a year ago. We couldn't do it this summer, of course, for COVID. And last summer and this summer, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to as well, but that was a big help when we did it the year before in 19. So that's it. I know I talk a lot, so that's my little presentation. We I have seen, I don't know if you've heard of the district that they basically, let me see, did you stop? Okay. And the district they did today, some of the students were to return. So we did see, I went from about 45%. We're anywhere from 40 to 45% the last few weeks. Now we are up to 60% today. So we did have increase this last week of students coming back, which we're thankful for. I know I'm very open. They don't have to go online like the district is advertising. Each semester I tell the parents, anytime you want to come in, walk through the door. I don't want to tell you have to wait till February 2nd or give 2-week notice. Come, we're ready for you. So that's kind of North Grade.
That is awesome. Vice Mayor, do you have something?
I just wanted to make a comment, Vice Mayor Andy Amoroso. I wanted to thank you for all the great work that you do. And from our last meeting with Erica, she hooked me up with Rebecca. So I've been working with her building your food pantry. I have a car full of peanut butter. So I was trying to call her this afternoon for tomorrow's delivery. So I just want to thank you for everything.
Did you see her story on Dateline?
I did not.
She was on national TV with the food bank with her segment. I'll have to send it to you guys. They featured her as an educator giving, the program as giving to the community and trials and tribulations with Lester Holt. So it was kind of
very cool. Yeah, send that to me. I was asking her what more we could do. And we're going to try to hook some stuff up for the teachers too, because,
oh, great.
Kids get hungry, they need some snacks, so we're going to try to make that happen.
That would be awesome. Yes. And I know after she did that segment on Lester Holt, they were at our school for all day long and they did a segment. It came out, I want to say the first week in January. She's been inundated with, people calling from all over. Rachel Ray on the afternoon show just called her today too and wants to do another segment. So at this point, we're trying to figure out where to kind of direct these our
Well, I
donations that
asked how
she's
much
done a
room she
fabulous
had,
job.
And she just said, she had the corner in her office. So, we're
Yes.
trying to accommodate.
I know, I did tell her I have to get her a bigger room because it is overflowing right now. But we send home a backpack every Friday with all the kids full of food, and then they bring it back and she fills it up. The food pantry comes, I'm sure she's told you, their truck comes every Tuesday and drops off their delivery, so.
Great. But thank you for everything that you do.
No, I have to say, right now, everyone has just been so gracious in the whole community with all this going on, believe it or not. Everybody's just, opened their wallets, their hearts, whatever they have to give. So that's really heartening to see, to tell you the truth.
Did you get my letter?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Okay, good. We're going to be working on trying to improve the attendance
Yes.
and also honor some teachers too. So.
Yes, we would love that. We would love that. And I have to say, this week alone, we've gone up probably 10%. We've been knocking on doors, trying to get them in, do anything to get them in, because they need to be in school. And quite honestly, when we opened up in September, every teacher was probably scared to death in Palm Beach County. Every administrator was. But I have to honestly say, if you walk on my teachers are still leery. Don't think that they're not. But quite honestly, the fear, we feel safe there. I mean, I think we feel safe. We're taking a lot of precautions. I don't let visitors on campus. We social distance. I keep the rooms. I don't let any more than 13 to 16 in a room. And I think the teachers feel really safe, and I think they're welcome, the kids coming back. If we can just get the message out that school is safe. And I haven't had I should say that I just actually got my first student tested positive today, but I've had no students except my first one today.
That's awesome.
And, an adult on campus that brought it in. So I have to say, we feel, I want kids to come. If anybody's listening, that send their kids. They need to be in school. Kids need to be in school. So.
Oh, thank you so much, Nicole. We really
All
appreciate
right. Have a good day.
it. And send me that video too. Hold on 1 second. Commissioner Robinson?
Commissioner. Thank you. Does the SAC group still meet then virtually, or how are they meeting?
We meet virtual, both. So I'm on campus and Miss Curry's my SAC chair. She's on campus, whatever parents want, but so far, we've been on campus and they're virtual, but we've opened the doors if they want to come. And that's because the governor told us we had to. But no parents have come on yet. We're just doing it virtually, but it is open.
And are you fully staffed? You have a full complement of teachers?
I am fully staffed. The problem we have, and not only at my school, but all the schools, is pretty much substitutes. So, the teachers feel comfortable right now because they probably have anywhere from, I have some classes with 5 kids in the restaurant virtual, with some classes with 16 kids and, 2 or 3 virtual. The problem is there's no substitutes. So if they are out sick, I, usually have to split a class. And then that's when other class numbers get up. And that's the only time that they get really nervous, is if the teachers are out and, they have to split a class, because there's no subs. We're really short across the whole district. Staff wise, knock on wood, I'm doing good.
Great. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
Ann. All right, we'll be in touch. And don't forget to send us that video.
I will. I'll do that tonight.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thanks again, Nicole.
All right. Thank you.
Stay safe.
All right, commission liaison reports and comments. Commissioner Robinson.
All right. The interfaith is, for the next 28 days, is interfaith is working on conversation with race and Martin Luther King and all the things that need to be talked about. The wall is progressing beautifully. The candidates have had debates, which is different this year, and it's part of democracy. I did talk to some people who didn't realize that they can vote for all the commissioners and mayor. That concerned me, and I think the community should be aware that of their voting capacity. Look forward to some of the workshops that I thought could have been more direct without being too confrontational. You know, decisions have to be made from these workshops. The longer it goes, sometimes it festers to be more than a problem. You know, I'd like to commit to some decisions in the future, in the near future. The Charter Review Committee as applications. Apparently, we're going to form a Charter Review Committee on March 2nd, or the first meeting in March. And I just want to say that the COVID is still a very dangerous thing, and we need to be respectful of your neighbor, fellow citizen, with masks, washing hands, and staying socially distanced. Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It seems like all the boards I sit on have met since the last meeting. Palm Beach County League of Cities, Florida League of Cities, the Ethics Forum, the Sober Home Task Force. So lots of meetings. Some are in person, some are Zoom, but I've been very busy with all those different groups. Also, the Virtual Housing Summit happened. In front of you, you have a bunch of information I brought you. Palm Beach County League of Cities 2021 membership directory. Also, the Palm Beach County League of Cities legislative priorities in front of you. So you'll see a lot of the same ones, sober homes, Airbnbs. You'll see some of the same ones coming up, but Palm Beach County League of Cities, and West Palm Beach County, you'll see a lot of the new ones that are focused on COVID and the issues that are going on today. So that's in your packet. Also, you have 3 maps. That's some of the work from the CRA. You may or may not have known that the CRA has put out 3 different maps. One to help local retail, shopping, one to help local dining, and a murals poster. And that anybody coming down can, know where our restaurants are, where our shops are. We try to keep those up to date as much as possible. And then also the mural, we get a lot of people coming and saying, we heard about these great murals, where can we find them? So this way it's all in one map. It'll give them the walking instructions to get around the city and find the great restaurant, shops, and murals. The other thing in front of you is the Lake Worth Beach and electric utility green bag. So this is part of the green initiative that I've pushed through and, working on. We started with some straws. We're going to continue with, trying to get downtown merchants to use paper straws. We're trying to wean people off of plastic bags. So these are green bags. We will start putting these out in the downtown area, library, the green market, local retailers. So we encourage everyone to stop at your favorite restaurant, at your favorite shop downtown, pick up green bags, get a couple because they're great to keep in the car. And we encourage you to bring them with you every time you go to the grocery store, when you're stopping to get stuff at the green market, so we can do away with those green bag or the plastic bags eventually. And then last on my list, this came out in the mail, that a forum on policing in public in Palm Beach County, a forum on policing in Palm Beach County. It's coming up tomorrow night. It is limited to the people that can go. So they're asking you to either go online and RSVP or the little scan. You can scan it on your phone. That's what I did, and it'll put you in. And that's tomorrow night.
What's the date on that?
Wednesday, February 10th.
That's next week.
Oh, it's next week.
Yeah.
Next Wednesday, February 10th, from 6:30 to 8:30
The Osborne.
at the Osborne Center. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bloxon.
All right, to let everyone know that we're still having volunteers at the Unity Wall on Saturday. We're going to start again this Saturday at 9 o'clock. So please come out and join us to be a part of this community event. I had the opportunity to go to Peniel Haitian Baptist Church. This is the group of people that took over the Scottish Rite Center on 22nd Street. I didn't realize it, but they have over 800 members in their church. And when I went, they were socially distancing, but the church was full. And it was just a wonderful experience. And Pastor George, he couldn't be nicer, so I'm trying to visit more of the churches in the city to get to feel for what their needs are. But it was just a fantastic experience. So thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't have too terribly much this evening. My focus, of course, has been on trying to pin down how we can support and facilitate communications between our residents who do not have computer access to help them somehow get interfaced, if you will, with the vaccine appointment process. It seems like the information keeps changing every day. Sometimes you think there is a phone number and then they set up a phone number and it crashes. So I'm trying to really pin that down and see what we can do to come up with some good information that's going to be actually actionable by our residents. I'm hoping that we'll be able to do that in the next week or so. Also, speaking of the wall, Commissioner Bloxon, I want to throw something out here to the group, and maybe you could tell me what your thoughts are on this. So much thought and so much effort and love has gone into redoing this wall the second time. And I'm just wondering if it might be appropriate, and if it is appropriate, whether the commission would consider maybe when the wall is complete, having some sort of a plaque or something created commemorating the effort on that wall, maybe giving some history of that wall or whatever the community wants to project in terms of what that wall is all about. And I just wanted to kind of get an idea if the commission would be interested in, going down that path and exploring something like that the city is a gift, if you will, for this effort. And again, we don't own the wall. It's not our wall. The wall is owned by a number of residents that are privately owned, but it's all one big wall. But I thought maybe our contribution could be, when it's all done, cherry on top. I don't know if that's the appropriate way to express it. Commissioner Bloxon, do you have any thoughts?
Commissioner Bloxon?
The first space on the wall has been reserved for a plaque.
Cool.
We are in just the beginning stages of trying to decide what's going to go on the plaque, but we certainly would love any assistance that we could get in the city in helping us facilitate this. I think that this is a great idea. And we have so many partners, and the city has been so gracious that this would just be, you're right, the cherry on the top.
Okay.
So, yes, I think it would be a great idea.
Consensus?
Absolutely. I appreciate the dialogue.
Yeah, appreciate it. That's awesome. Okay, TPA, we are, basically, we've got our transportation plans underway. We've got a few projects in there. As we all know, we had the presentation on I-95 and 10th Avenue North. So I'd like to bring that back at some point so we can kind of discuss what are some of our options, city manager, as a city, to try to alleviate some of those situations that make the grade so poor on the parts that we can handle. Because I think everyone was not satisfied completely with, even after all those improvements and all those additions, there's still C's and D's and E's. So I think we need to bring that back, because that's a problem. Also, what else came up too? Also, hearing some good things out there on the street, some new businesses moving to town in the middle of a global pandemic. I don't want to ruin anybody's anything, but there's a lot of good stuff coming, and hearing positive things from the Gulfstream Hotel, and hopefully we'll have some very good news in the near future there. I'll keep it short and sweet today. Okay. So up next, public participation of non-agenda items and consent agenda items. Madam City Clerk.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have two comments tonight. The first one is from Diane Brown. The rebuilding of our pool at the casino is important to our community. The commission has set aside $6 million of the sales tax money to be spent on the pool. This is very important to continue with the dedication of this money for this project. This money is necessary to get the pool built. Thank you for your time, Diane Brown. I have a second comment from Don Rosenshine. Dear Mayor and Commissioners, in October 2019, in accordance with the Triolo Compromise, $6 million were allocated by a majority of the commission and the mayor to be expended on the reconstruction of the casino pool. You have spent $150,000 plus on CPZ architects to develop attractive renderings of a future pool, which were presented to a favorable public response in August of 2019. We are in the process of reconstituting a citywide pre-COVID constituency in support of the pool. We find there's more enthusiasm for the pool than before the pandemic. There may be evidence that those pool dollars are being or have been reallocated in favor of other priorities. If so, this is not acceptable and will cause much unrest among the many pool supporters. The $6 million for the pool should not be promised, expended, reallocated until a satisfactory finalized pool rehabilitation bid with all approved specifications monitored by CPZ architects and promulgated to the public bid, and said bid is satisfactorily accepted. In short, you should not spend this money on anything else until the pool is satisfactorily completed. Such an expenditure would violate the reason and intent of the October 2019 vote. Practically, if you spend any of these funds before this process was completed and something went awry, there would not be enough money for the pool. Any other policy would constitute a breach of public trust and cause havoc and substantial disfavor among the citizens of Lake Worth Beach. Sincerely, Don Rosenshine. That's all I have for public participation, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Approval of the minutes, and I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Consent agenda. I'll entertain.
So move.
Seconded by Commissioner Robinson. Was that you?
Yes,
There you go. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excuse me, who made the motion on that?
That was the Vice Mayor Pro Tem, and Commissioner Robinson made the second.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to move on over to unfinished business. This is clarification of direction on 17 South M Street, Leisure Services Offices Relocation Study. City Manager, you know, you and I had several thousand words about this.
Yes, Madam Mayor. You want me to go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor and Commission. You might recall this item from the last time, I think it was at the last meeting we met, and there was a lot of questions and concerns. And since that approval at the last meeting, there was a lot more comments that were brought up. I actually attended a meeting with the Bryant Park Neighborhood Association and heard from many individuals. There was concern about, obviously, there's people who are pro and for and against the issue of this building. But one of the things that came out was that in the original discussion in that material, we talked about using a target of Bryant Park as the home location for the study that we were trying to conduct to get the feasibility and the costs associated with moving a structure and replacing. And because we don't have a master plan, because we haven't aired this with the neighbors and the folks that use the park and live around the park, I know that you had asked me to bring this back for reconsideration to clarify and remove those references to Bryant Park. And what we've done is we've narrowed it down to limiting the scope and developing the cost estimates to a 5-block area. That's basically the best way we figure that we can still get this needed information to find out if it's feasible and what it would kind of cost to move the structure. But and nowhere is there any endorsement in this language that says Bryant Park. And just to clarify, we never had approval from the commission or direction from y'all to move it to Bryant Park. This was something that staff and you know, being the city manager, I'm held accountable for these items. It shouldn't have been in there until the heavy lift of working with the community to talk about what is Bryant Park's future and does this structure and its purpose fit that. So we're backing up and saying the need to move this building is still something that is an issue because you did purchase this lot for parking with sales tax money. And there is also a potential development that would be coming forward in that same area. So moving and cost of moving and feasibility is still important data to have. And this $20,000 to get to that point is important. But again, no reference, okay, anything referencing moving it to Bryant Park. So that's completely clearly in this item, your direction does if y'all approve it. And my guarantee back to you that we're not talking about that.
Yeah, I just think sometimes, and I had asked the city manager about this because, a lot of times we're reaching out because there's certain things that you guys have to do. But when you put it out there like that before there's even a study, we've been talking about parks master plans for how long here, our ball fields, and all these things. And, we need to get on that. And I know that we have been in an unprecedented situation with COVID and we're all burned out and working on both ends because, we've got so many feeding programs, testing sites, everyone's putting their all into everything and then still trying to hold down a job and raise your family and do everything else. I know it's hard and we're working, you guys are all working that hard too, every day. So, but we have to, we've had all these discussions about things. I just don't want things coming before we even see what's on the horizon or see what projects are going to look like. We've got to figure out what we want and what the community wants with our park space, and where we can add and where we can take away. And that's a big, a big part of our life and our livelihoods. So.
And Madam Mayor, I said this to some of the people who took me to task for this issue. I apologize for creating what really basically would be an unnecessary set of worries and stress because you clearly, as the decision-making policy board and my bosses, had not given authorization to move or to even talk about that as an issue. So having it in the item, even though it wasn't part of the work, it doesn't matter. And I apologize for creating that confusion for the organization and for y'all.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Commissioner Robinson?
Yeah, I'm just pleased that we can reconsider decisions. It's Bryant Park was in the words were in what we approved as a vote to talk about moving that building to Bryant Park. I'm glad that we're reconsidering not putting it in Bryant Park. It was not being moved to Bryant Park for a park activity. It was being moved to use for leisure services offices. That's, I guess, one point. The other point is I was disturbed that we would act as a developer and put something in a neighborhood without going to the neighborhood. I'm going to say again that we should be required and require any developer to go to the neighborhoods, either before they make a proposal or after. But before any approvals are given, they should be required to communicate, and at least information-wise, their developments. This is the consequences of not planning ahead. I'm going to say, you buy a boat, you should consider where you're going to store it or what you're going to do with it after you float it. We have an issue of what to do with this building. I am concerned that this building issue is going to be the bullet that kills the development project there. That's on us. We've spent a lot of money, not enough planning to have development on that property. And we need to do something to keep moving this forward. I'm going to propose, we're talking about, do we know how many lots we own in a 5-block area? And if we don't, we own land at the golf course. And I want to make a proposal to move it and use it as leisure services office space in the parking lot, the westernmost part of the parking lot at the golf course. If we're going to move it at all. Unless we have a person that's going to invest more money than what it would cost to build it new again. It's going to be, nobody's going to look good at the end of this decision. It's truly a large expense for a very little gain, and it has nothing to do with the park usage. It was an attempt to relocate a problem. I think you're asking, the city manager is asking for direction. I think we should be a little more specific in what we want to have happen on that development site. The CRA, I don't know if they're here tonight or want to chime in, or they're part of this is a public-public partnership, and it's not going well so far. I hope we have some definitive discussion tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to new business. City Attorney, would you read the ordinance, please?
I'm sorry.
Madam Mayor, there are comments that were made on this item. Do you
I'm sorry.
want to hear them?
Oh,
Or
yeah.
no?
You didn't have a motion or a second, so go ahead.
Well, I was making a motion. I will make a motion to consider moving the building to the golf course. And if that doesn't pass, I would consider requiring a reconsideration of I don't know where the process is. Is the CRA in attendance tonight?
The item is just on, this item is not about that project. This item is about that house and the language that was used to move that house to Bryant Park. That's the item on the agenda. Again, it's not.
So it
This
doesn't-
does not require a vote.
It doesn't, right.
It doesn't address solving the problem. It just says, we're not going to move it to Bryant Park. Is that?
It removes Bryant Park from the last decision. Go ahead, City.
Madam Mayor, a couple things. It's a clarification that the study results will give you estimated costs and feasibilities on what it would take to move this structure off that site. The $20,000 will give you that, and you will then use that as data for making further decisions as you go down the process of deciding what to do with this structure. If you want to move it at all, that's all the purview of this board.
And that's where we started our conversation, saying, we haven't even talked about if we even want to move the thing. Why are we talking about moving it to Bryant Park?
And one of the things that we in conversation was, well, what's it cost? And is it feasible to even move it and the garage? Because it is it's an important structure. It's got historic value, and it was redone by the previous owner that we acquired it from. So that, and while, and I apologize, Mayor, we probably would I would appreciate having actually an emotion on this, just to reconfirm. I don't want to leave any loose ends here that language gets completely expunged from the deal. I think a motion would be appropriate. So I apologize. I didn't notice it didn't have a motion written out here. So it would basically be to prove the item without, as amended, previously, removing any references and restricting it to the 5-block area.
Okay. We've got a motion by the Vice Mayor Pro Tem.
Second.
We have a second. Okay, and let's go to public comment. Madam City Clerk.
The first comment we have is from Cliff Kohlmeyer. Dear Commissioners, having already paid $620,000 to purchase this historic property, the Commission is now considering a relocation that would, according to staff, cost another $384,000 over the next 3 years. The justification for this $1 million taxpayer-funded boondoggle is, quoting from staff's executive brief, to preserve, restore, repurpose, and activate historic city-owned assets and provide superior public amenities and services to retain existing and entice new residents and businesses. First of all, the building was fully remodeled by its previous owner and does not need to be restored. The best way to preserve it is to leave it where it is. It's unclear why it would need to be further activated, as it's already useful as a home to leisure services. Staff says it will be return on investment because reduced costs associated with the relocation of an existing structure over the construction of a new city facility. This statement implies a binary choice between demolition or relocation. If the building were demolished, then there may indeed be a need for a new city facility. But the best option is not between demolition and removal of this historic structure. It's to keep the building in place as a historic landmark in the downtown Jewel Old Historic District. Its removal would impair the historic fabric and character of the downtown at a significant cost to the taxpayers. Respectfully, Cliff Kohlmeyer. The second comment is from Claudia Harrison. Hello, I'm a fairly recent transplant to the city of Lake Worth Beach. I moved here in August of 2017. I live a few blocks south of this house and pass it regularly on my walks around town and to and from work. It's a beautiful home and it gives the block a stately feel. Not only would relocating it be a loss for the block and surrounding area, but the suggested replacement, an outsized modern horror of an apartment building, would be a glaring alien species on that street. I am not anti-change. Done thoughtfully and wisely, it can be a catalyst for growth in any town. But this is not thoughtful or wise. It's grotesque and seems to be driven by a short-term interest, interested in increased tax revenue. Leave the house, think it through, and come up with a better plan. Thank you for your time. The next one is from Sylvia Rotella. I am a Lake Worth Beach taxpayer and I vote no for relocating 17 South M Street. First, because it's a historical home. Second, the city struggles with parking as it is. Where are the residents in this multi-story gonna park their cars? Third, please use the money to fix the roads, build the pool. North B Street is riddled with potholes and needs to be repaved. I can't even report the road issues on the website. Please fix the roads in Tropical Ridge neighborhood ASAP. Who can tell me when this is going to happen? Mrs. Rotella. The next one is from Lisa Coper. I am opposed to replacing this home, which has a distinguishing architectural style and is true to a sense of place and time, with the proposed gargantuan soulless block type structure. The proposed building has the mundane Anywhere USA look, seemingly a developer's standard design choice. These kinds of structures take away from a locally distinctive charm and character, and the place becomes, in Gertrude Stein's famous words, there is no there kind of place. The next comment is from Diane Lombardo. As the homeowner of 213 South M Street since its construction in 2004, I'm deeply troubled by the proposed L&M Street project, and in particular the fate of 17 South M Street, located in the downtown Jewel neighborhood. My home was built with the strictest adherence to the city's historic code. Keep 17 South M Street in its location, where it's one of the last remaining historic landmarks of our charming neighborhood. Removing it would further strip the downtown Jewel neighborhood of its intrinsic historic value and uniqueness. As a taxpayer, I am appalled by the city's eagerness to put the profit of an outside developer over the interest of tax-paying and voting residents who are happy to permanently live out our lives here and support our city. I've witnessed other boondoggle projects opposed by residents, but the removal or relocation of 17 South M Street at the cost of $384,000 on top of its purchase price of $620,000 is a blatant disregard of our best interests. This proposal just compounds our disapproval of the lost revenue and blight created by the city, which left more than 7 L&M Street properties vacant for the past 2 years. The next one is from Richard Stowe. Dear Mayor Triolo and City Commissioners, not only was the city's idea to move 2 contributing historic buildings at 17 South M to Bryant Park a terrible idea, but moving the two structures at 17 South M to an unavailable location within a 5-block radius that is estimated to cost $400,000 is unacceptable. The two contributing historic structures at 17 South M must be left to age in place. A percentage of these proposed capital expenditures must instead be directed to update and beautify buildings and grounds at 17 South M. 3 improvements and maintenance expenditures at 17 South M. 1, replace the natural gray metal shingles with pure white metal shingles, which are so efficient due to reflectivity and transpiration that that air inside the attic is cooler than ambient air. Cool roofing at 17 South M will set an example for the rest of the city. And 2, the current landscaping is outdated and does not meet current landscaping ordinance threshold. A small stand in the front yard, Sansevieria or snake plant, a Category 1 Florida exotic pest plant, should be removed immediately. Non-native hedges, ground cover, and palms should be removed and replaced with South Florida and drought-tolerant natives. In 2012, the contractor and applicant converted an apartment above the garage to storage. The space should be converted to a garage apartment again to provide the city with steady income source. Richard Stowe. And the last comment we have is from Richard Gercio, and unfortunately, it just says he's against. Dear Madam Mayor, regarding the approval of this project, I must say I'm against it, but doesn't say which project. Charles Royce is on the line with us and he'd like to read his comments. And Mr. Royce, you have 2 minutes.
Should be allowed to talk now.
Well, I intended to speak to you on behalf of the property owners and owners associations along South Gulfview Road and our neighboring streets in Bryant Park in regards to this issue, this initiative to move the house into Bryant Park. However, based on the comments from the city manager and the other members of the commission this evening, and by my calculation, Bryant Park is at least 6 blocks away from 17 South M Street. So therefore, I see no reason to continue with our comments in opposition to the proposal. So thank you for your time.
The last comment is from Tom Conboy. Mr. Conboy would like to respond if he's in this meeting.
I am here.
Good, you have 2 minutes.
Great. Honorable Mayor and Commissioners, at the January meeting, this body approved a budget amendment to study the option of moving the city-owned historic home at 17 South M Street to Bryant Park. The vote also included CIP funding for Howard Park. It was clear from staff the dollar amounts being approved for the resurfacing of Howard Park basketball courts was old information that is no longer relevant. Despite these errors, Commissioner Carla Blockson, Commissioner Andy Amoroso, Commissioner Scott Maxwell, and Mayor Pam Triola, you voted to approve this item. Even though staff admitted the dollar amounts approved were old information and no longer relevant. Commissioner Robinson, I am very glad that you voted no. You appropriately voted no on this item because it had old information in it. I'm extremely disappointed that fixing this problem doesn't even include the Howard Park funding that was in error, right? And several comments were put together once we found out it was 17 South M Street that you guys were talking about. And then it was very clear that it was moving to Bryant Park. Now, suddenly, we've gone from it's going to go to Bryant Park, so it's not going to go to Bryant Park. No public meetings. Our city administrator went to a neighborhood association meeting that was not publicly published or announced or anything like that, and a decision was made to remove that as a possibility at all. Now, I'm not saying it needs to be in Bryant Park, but I'm saying that there's a problem with your public process here. The lack of public input on high-profile items such as this is a problem. Our city administrator stated that the city purchased the 17 South M Street for more public parking. He then disingenuously acted like the city had no knowledge of the 120 unit apartment complex, which is proposed to go on the site, and the fact that they are proposing to remove 67 public parking spaces from our downtown. While the city
Thank
commission
you.
may not have received an agenda item from the CRA to approve this deal yet, the city is planning to spend, sounds like $384,000 to move the structure. Why isn't the developer going to move it?
Thank
Why
you,
are we
sir.
paying for this?
Thank you, sir. I'm sorry, your time was up a little while ago.
Okay,
The clerk
thank
tried-
you.
I'm sorry, the clerk tried to stop you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more, Madam City Clerk,
No, Madam Mayor.
City Manager?
Do you want me to provide just a little clarification?
Please do.
A lot of issues are getting kind of tangled up.
I
here.
just heard 3.
Yeah, at the G, in the back of
Can
it.
you repeat that? I'm sorry, I accidentally turned us off.
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor. I think the last speaker was referencing a CDBG item that was funding renovations and upgrades at Howard Park. And in the back of material, it had previous data that had been sent with the original application. And it didn't reflect the actual grant work being done in Howard Park. I think that was the item that was kind of getting cross-referenced with the 17 South M Street item. So the 17 South M Street item and the purchase of this property along with the other properties actually, and I stood up here and explained this to, I think, the HRPB back when this first happened. We had been originally in negotiations for a potential hotel coming into the downtown. And part of the conversation we were having was, well, we need to address parking downtown. And we also have a potential for a deal to share a parking garage at that location built in with mixed use that would support that. That's how we came to acquire it for parking, for public parking purposes. That deal fell through, and then the conversation moved to, well, the CRA putting it out there to see what developers would be willing to do, along with the K Street properties that we own now that's currently parking. And there were several proposers that made proposals that they selected as a potential developer purchaser. As we stand right now, and everybody keeps telling me they don't want a specific looking structure, there hasn't been a submittal yet. There isn't anything that anybody can point to say this is what the developer who had been in negotiations with the CRA and selected to purchase the property has submitted nothing. We have nothing.
But may I interrupt for a second?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
The issue is this, though, and this is what gets me so frustrated with you sometimes. I'm sorry, but it's just staff, the structure that they're all complaining about that looks horrible and that is terrible was a rendering that William Waters did, trying to explain what types of things could be built based on our codes.
Correct.
It was not a plan from a developer to put that on a piece of property. And that picture keeps coming up, or people keep getting ticked off about it, but there was no plan ever submitted yet. And that's why the developer didn't reach out to people, because it doesn't even have a plan. So but the problem that I have with you, sir, is that being excited about it and trying to get ahead of it from a staff perspective, and I appreciate that, I really, really do. But sometimes you guys, like I said before, you put the cart before the horse. You put a rendering out that people think is the Bible, and they're all upset about it, and there's no project. And then the same thing with Bryant Park. We don't even know if we're going to move the building to begin with. I wanted to buy that building for my house, but I couldn't afford it. After the last guy did it and it was on the market. It's a beautiful house, a beautiful location, and we don't even have a project yet.
Yes, ma'am.
And we're asking to move it to some place that we don't even know, and we haven't even done any work on it. It's just frustrating because it puts us, in a light like we're not. There's nothing happening. That's why people haven't been reached out to. But you're doing it from an administrative standpoint, and scaring them into thinking that these things are happening when they're not. And when a project does come through and the plans are made, then you're going to bring it, it'll be brought before it's been made up to be, this thing. And I get it. You're doing your job, and I appreciate that. But it's just that cart before the horse thing that freaks people out because it's in their neighborhood. And we shouldn't be doing that. We should take it step by step by step.
And Madam Mayor, I appreciate your comments, and the perception of people when information gets pushed out there. It was truly our intent, and intent doesn't mean that it's received that way,
I understand.
was to try to demonstrate through those pictures the potential of what the code and what the rules allow for infill redevelopment. And we tried to explain that repeatedly, and apparently we didn't do a very good job. But those pictures have become the image burned in people's retinas. And it was, and excuse this term, it was an effort at transparency to show what the code would deliver if somebody were to come in and potentially look at amassing of what it would. Doesn't mean that that would be the final, because y'all have some more leeway, because as property owners, you have some negotiating ability with this. It's always been my intent to try to give you as much data as possible as these things come along. And there is a sense that we need to know what it costs and what the impacts to move all the chess pieces around. And it's turned into an unfortunate mess. But no development proposal has been submitted to the city yet to comment on, or to say it looks like this or doesn't look like this or includes whatever. So everybody's amped up, and
No, and I know why you do it. It's just frustrating to see the response of it, because that picture is then taken out by members of the commission, and shown as this is what it's going to be, and it's not what it's going to be, and everyone freaks out. You know what I mean? And I know, those renderings, fine. When we did our plan, when we were deciding, when William did that beautiful rendering of what could be built at this area or the C-51 canal or whatever, and it's helped development people see and get ideas for what types of projects could happen there. And it's good, but left in its own devices with its own narrative by somebody who has absolutely no knowledge of what's going on, it creates chaos and problems.
it's similar to the design proposals that were pushed out about the beach.
Correct.
And there was never anything officially approved that was going to be, it
Correct.
changes in its possibilities, but yes, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, so we've got a motion on the floor and a second.
I have a
Sorry.
comment,
Give me Commissioner Robinson, please have the floor.
thank you. Part of the problem is this deliberative body that sits here that gives direction to the city manager. This item would, and we got off onto the project itself. The problem tonight is one building. It was this decision that you made the last meeting was on consent. There was no discussion. I'm beginning to think that the city manager is taking responsibility for a mistake. We have a responsibility to the public to express our ideas, concerns, issues, and the direction that we want this project to go. And we don't do that. You were quite ready to go to new business a minute ago without any discussion. I think it deserves a little more discussion and direction. Right now, we're going to put it off again for another study. I would think that we have the ability amongst the five of us to say that if the city doesn't own any lots within a 5-block area radius, that we could, and I'm interested in hearing, there was, again, we sat mute about a conversation to move it to and use it as a leisure services office on the golf course. If we don't want to do that, I'm going to suggest that we talk about with the CRA, if they're listening, or if we have any input to what the CRA does, to possibly at great expense to the city, develop a development that would blend with this building in a more residential. And if you were willing to buy that building at whatever cost it was, demonstrates that people will move into a home in that specific neighborhood. So we could develop I'm going to say a high-end enclave of homes there. it's going to be expensive for the city, but we have had no conversation on the dais about, other than approving what the code can do. The community deserves to know the thought process of the decision makers, and to rush on to have things on consent, to immediately move to new business without any discussion or decision. I find it frustrating on my part. And I, as a citizen, I can't believe that we are doing our job appropriately if we don't give direction and discuss a problem and try to work to a solution. These studies and putting off, time is money, and I think that right now we're going to do nothing because we haven't come up with any real solutions other than to study it. So
I have a suggestion. I have a suggestion.
I think we should all listen to good suggestions.
That's what I'm trying to do. That's why I brought it here tonight, because I didn't like the way that it read, and going back over it, I didn't think that it was, I didn't think it was clear. Plus the fact I have been consistent when I talk about a parks master plan. You're talking about putting it in the golf course or putting it in Bryant Park or putting it anywhere. We need to know what we want to see in our parks and where we want them. We've been saying this for the longest time. You were more than happy to talk about tearing up the ball fields on the north end of the town for a new development.
Should be discussed.
Well, you went and investigated after it before you even talked to the community. You were talking to the developers before you even talked to the neighborhoods that border it.
I didn't talk to any developers.
So
I didn't talk, and to say that there's.
Excuse me, I'm speaking, I have the floor, and then I would be more than gladly to hand it over to you. What I'm saying to you is that we need to know, we can't just throw these things out there. You can't just start talking about getting rid of ball fields and putting this there, or putting this historic house on Bryant Park, or doing this here. It's all the same. You can't throw it out there into the cyberspace and let it, or into the neighborhoods and let it just go when there's no plans to do such things. I think that this ordinance really, city manager, needs to go away at this point. It needs to go away. There are no plans for development in that area. There are no plans for anything that we haven't seen. I mean, there's nothing going on there that warrants you having to do a study at $20,000, quite honestly, to move this property. There's nobody buying, there's nobody building, there's nobody developing, there's nothing on the plate. If there was something on the plate and you want to bring it before us and we see it and we know it, then obviously I would be more than happy to move to approve the expenditure of $20,000 for this study. But there's not. There never was. Commissioner Robinson.
Well, we're getting off topic here. The discussion of master plan for parks has very little to do with discussion of the money we've invested. We've invested a tremendous amount of money in that L&M project, and to say do nothing again because nobody's interested in it, it's our responsibility to act on our investment. I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, but to shelve a discussion of part of the problem of the development is just.
I honestly just don't know what you want, Commissioner. I don't understand, and I don't know what you want.
I'm saying we need
You just want to blame me for something. You don't want to do anything. You're not offering me any solution. You just want to blame me.
I just did. I offered you two, and we were not.
To put it on the park is part of park spaces. The golf club is part of park spaces. You're talking, what's the difference between the two? Move it to the park, to the golf. What's the difference? If you're proposing exactly what you don't want to happen on the park. You don't want to move it to the park, but you'll move it to the golf course, or I'll move it to the golf course, but not the park. It doesn't make any sense.
Do you understand what I'm talking about is a parking lot at the golf course versus park land on a waterfront property? That's one
I'm not a mind reader.
discussion that we might have. The other discussion is to have this building as part of a residential development that is more in keeping with that building and the residential neighborhood that exists there.
Do you have that buyer?
Apparently, do we have a buyer for any of it now?
I'm just saying.
I think, people need, it's like, yeah, I want to sell my house, but well, I don't know whether I'm going to sell it for $10 or $300, and I only want to sell it to somebody that's going to raise children there. I mean, let's put some ridiculous conditions on. Let's be open to any possibility. And we're sitting on a tremendous investment. Our underutilized assets are growing at this point. And I'm really disappointed that we can't, as a body, our responsibility to give direction to the city manager who deals with the CRA. This is, the CRA has done great work. It doesn't mean that every project they're presenting is going to be without conflict.
Again, I'm trying to get to the bottom of this. What is it that you want?
I think I haven't heard from anybody else except you telling me that you're willing to shelve it. What I want is a decision on what we're going to do with this one building that should have been part of the plan moving forward at the beginning. It wasn't, so now we have to deal with it. And by dealing with it, we're going to study it. I think that we as a deliberative body should be able to give direction on, you were quite willing to vote to move it to Bryant Park. And now you don't want to do anything. I'm a little frustrated.
Commissioner Bloxham.
Being new to this commission, one of the things that I've learned in a very short period of time is we cannot allow staff to give direction to the commission. The commission gives direction to staff. And so we all have to put on our
Big girl.
yeah.
Taking my line.
I'm sorry. What my mother would have said was, we need to put on our big girl panties and make a decision.
Exactly.
Now, that is certainly not commission worthy, and I apologize.
I've used it a
I
few
am a little frustrated with our lack of being able to make a decision based on the facts and also based on community input. You've already paid for the land. You've already bought it. You've had many discussions. How many discussions were with the neighborhoods that were affected? Maybe we need to take a pause and listen to them, and then the commission directs staff to say what you want done. There's nothing wrong with saying, I'm sorry. I applaud the city manager for saying that he made a mistake and he's willing to fix it. I applaud the mayor for saying, hey, we need to bring this back because we made a mistake the last time we did it. But we need to take a real pause and say, what does everyone else want? What do we want, and what direction do we want to give to the city manager? That is our responsibility. Let's own it. Now, that's my comment.
Anyone else?
Oh, I could go for hours.
Please.
Okay, so we've talked from this dais over and over about a master parks plan. We need that. And, I'm sorry, Herman, but that's part of what you've been preaching up here too. You want something done as a marina, as docks,
We're talking about a
Madam
development
Mayor,
between
excuse
L and
me,
M.
I'm speaking.
Yes,
Well,
Vice Mayor.
about a master.
Vice Mayor.
We're talking about an overall master plan because what you've done is you said, move it to the golf course. At some point, we're going to have a golf course conversation because the golf course is in my district and it's sinking. The holding area that actually holds the water is people's backyards now. So we need an overall parks and recreation master plan. If we're going to move these houses, if anybody, Herman, you've been here for a while, there used to be buildings in Bryant Park that we used for recreation. We need to bring some of those buildings back. As part of the master plan, we need to look. If you look at our other parks, there are buildings in those parks where people can get food, beverage, other things. If you're talking about some kind of a marina or something down there, excuse me, you're going to have somewhere for people to actually come and do some of those recreation things. So, you know, I personally agree with the mayor. I think that, you know, we need to look at the overall master plan. And, you know, I think that's part of it. You know, we need to look at what's going on in Bryant Park. The biggest call I get from Bryant Park is that it's loud and noisy when there's an event. You know, we can go on and on and on. But, you know, we're talking about moving a house to a place that may or may not be the perfect fit based on an overall master plan. And, you know, there's still boats parked in our marina that, you know, belong to, you know, certain neighborhoods. And, you know, my neighborhood would love to dock their boats for free down at our marina that's only supposed to be a day dock. So, you know, we can go on and on and on and have other conversations, but, you know, I believe we have a motion on the table.
Commissioner Robinson, yeah.
Well, you know, I don't know how this conversation went from day docks.
Because it's the whole package.
No, it isn't. What we're talking about is a development and investment of tremendous amounts of money on a project between L and M.
No, we're talking about a house that's going to be relocated. We're not
And
talking about any
you want to
development.
talk about day docks, and somebody else wants to talk about ball fields. Please, let's focus on getting this development, this investment that we have downtown moving forward. It involves a problem building. Let's just stick to this one particular building and not talk about a park master plan. The purpose I understood was to use it as office space for leisure services. I can appreciate them needing office space, but it doesn't solve the problem of what to do with 17 South M Street. And if you can't decide where to put it, and because we don't have a buyer, we're not going to decide where to put it because it's standing in the way of an investment development project that we all understood was going to move forward. I'm just astounded at the direction of the discussion to a parks master plan when we're talking about a development, a major development downtown.
Yeah, it's just, all I want to know is that we use penny sales tax money for that property for parking. So, I mean, if there's no project, right? And if nobody's shown us any pictures of anything, right? And there's nothing being built there, right? And we have to use that property for a parking lot. So, I mean, what are we deciding on buildings and this and that when no project has come before us, but we know for a fact it's our duty and our responsibility to use that land for parking. That's what we're required to by the usage. So let's focus on the parking lot since there's no projects. I don't know. Vice Mayor Pro Tem?
No, I've listened to this conversation. I guess my question of Commissioner Robinson is your expectation that we're going to resolve this tonight? Now that we've changed and given more specific direction to the city commissioner, to the city manager, because frankly, I'm not prepared to have that conversation because I need to think about it. I think maybe some others up here might have to think about it. And discussing it on the fly isn't necessarily going to get us, you know, the best result. I mean, the city manager's already, you know, come forth and said, okay, maybe, I got a little bit of excited or got ahead of the curve here. Let's take a step back. Okay, let's take a step back. And let's all think about it. And we'll bring it back and we'll talk about it. But to think that we're going to, you just talked about how we were mute, what was on the consent agenda. Now you want to make a snap decision tonight because the city manager has decided to take a step back. So you can't have it all ways. I'm not prepared to have that conversation tonight. I appreciate the city managers taking that step back. I appreciate him clarifying for the public. Finally, hopefully that message will get through, loud and clear. There's no project. Okay, there's no project there. So all this discussion out in the community about a developer coming in and building something, whether it's a monstrosity or not, is I got conjecture because there is no developer, there is no proposal. Let's just take one step at a time. We don't have to make that decision tonight. Thank you, city manager, for taking us back to where we needed to be in the first place.
Is this a new problem? Seriously, is it tonight the first time you even thought about the problem that we have with moving buildings, with demolishing buildings, with moving a project forward when there's something in the way? The CRA, then we need to give direction to the CRA, if that's possible, to incorporate this building into a development project, one way or the other. Let's not make it our problem. Let's make it the developer's problem. But right now it's our problem because we've paid a lot of money for this, and without that building solution, it's going to muddy up the progress of the project.
Vice Mayor?
We keep hearing that we've paid a lot of money for this project. That's what a CRA does. A CRA, if you listen to other CRAs and cities, Delray just bought 6 blocks and gave it to a developer because they could. They had funding to do that. That's how a CRA works. A CRA buys things up, puts things together so there can be development that brings more taxes and more utility revenue and over 100 doors to the downtown that each shop patronize your downtown merchants. That's how it works. And I think there's some confusion here that, we're doing something that's illegal or something outside the scope of what other cities and CRA does. And that's just not true.
To just go ahead and get along with the vote so we can.
Well, I want to see if we could we've got a motion on the floor in a second to approve it within a 5-block, whatever. Is it possible would anyone be interested in changing the motion to just table the expenditure at this time?
Are you good with that?
Because remember, this item, as much as we've talked about all these things, this item is really only about spending $20,000 on a study. That's all this is, a study about moving the building. That's exactly what this agenda item is. It's not about the building or the potential building. It's about a $20,000 study on moving that house.
Okay. Yes. All right, I'll rescind my motion and replace it with a motion to table this all together, and we'll deal with the potential relocation of that building if and when the project comes forward, and we'll figure out at that point who's going to be responsible for relocating it, pay for it, and all that. How's that?
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Opposed. This has got us nowhere. You're taking a problem and kicking it down the road. And so.
Point of order.
Well,
You've offered no solution, sir. I've asked you 3 times to offer a solution.
I offered you 2. Now, I don't know, you didn't understand the solutions, or you wanted to
Madam Mayor, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Okay. All right, we're moving on to a new business item A. This is, I'm sorry, City Attorney, would you read the ordinance, please?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Ordinance number 2020-20 is an ordinance of the City of Lake Worth Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 18 Utilities, Article 7 Stormwater Utility, Section 18-103 on-site drainage by requiring maintenance easements for zero lot line lots. Amending Chapter 23 Land Development Regulations by adding a new Section 23.2-37 Temporary Use Permit to create an approval process for temporary uses. Amending Article 3 Zoning Districts, Division 1, generally Section 23.3-6 Use Tables to establish temporary uses permitted by zoning district. Amending Article 4 Development Standards, Section 23.4-1 Secondary Accessory Dwelling Units, Section 23.4-6 Home Occupations, Section 23.4-10 Off-Street Parking, to clarify development standards related to accessory dwelling units and parking, as well as provide additional flexibility for home occupation uses in mixed use districts, and adding a new Section 23.4-22 temporary uses to establish development review standards for temporary uses, amending Article 5 supplementary regulations, Section 23.5-7 concurrency management and public facility capacity to require maintenance easements on zero lot line lots, providing for severability, conflicts, codification, and an effective date.
I'm sorry, could you start over?
You want me to read it backwards?
No.
Just kidding. I'll
Wow.
entertain a motion. I'll entertain a motion. Not controversial, folks. Motion.
Madam Mayor, I think they can give the presentation and then you can get a motion if you want.
Okay.
Glenn?
You could do that if the
I have a
mayor would
motion
like.
before discussion. Glenn, you want to clarify?
Yeah, Mayor, it's your discretion. Normally, as you said, we have the motion first. If you'd rather have a presentation first, you have the discretion to do that.
Okay, since everyone's being mum, yes, I would love a presentation first, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm Erin Cita for the Department of Community Sustainability. The item before you is ordinance 2020-20. This is this proposed ordinance. Excuse me a second, I'm having a little logistical issue here. There we go. The proposed ordinance was part of a series of amendments from March that were prioritized code amendments. These particular amendments, I won't revisit what Mr. Trusivia walked you through, but basically it covers several areas. The first area, this is a very minor change. This amendment provides for standardized access easements for zero lot lines. It has two exhibits because it amends two sections of the code. It's a very small change. A little bit larger change is exhibits B and G. This addresses temporary use permits. Right now, we don't have a process to permit and review in a very standardized ways temporary uses. Some of these temporary uses could include parking lots for construction areas, seasonal products, a wide variety of things. This is typically a standard review process. So this really just clarifies what those review standards are and creates a specific approval process for temporary uses. This will amend two sections of the code, including to establish the process of the temporary use permit and to create supplementary standards by which to review the proposed uses by. The next component of the ordinance is an exhibit C. This amends the use table, and this adds the temporary uses to the use table by zoning district. Exhibit D, the proposed amendment clarifies the size and construction standards for accessory dwelling units. We made some changes, if you recall previously, to the parking code and to some other things as part of this cleanup that we've been doing this year. So this focuses in on accessory dwelling units and really just clarifies all the standards that were in different sections of the code and consolidates them into one section for people who are eligible for accessory dwelling units in their district. Exhibit E is home occupations. This allows for additional flexibility for home occupations. And at this point, I'm actually going to turn the presentation over to William Waters. He can walk you through the concept. We're proposing something pretty innovative, and that is kind of it's a way to allow for more home occupations in mixed use, which is our commercial areas. William.
Thanks, Sarah. Mayor Commissioner William Waters, Community Sustainability Director. What we've developed here, we've been thinking about before COVID came along, and then after the COVID pandemic brought to light how much interest there was in working at home, having entrepreneurial approaches to investment, startup businesses, and that sort of thing. We created a series of parameters and performance standards to allow a broader professional type home occupation in properties that are already in a mixed use district. This would be on a case-by-case basis. Again, mixed use districts already allow professional offices, retail, commercial, and some other things. This would allow professional offices to be opened within a residential dwelling unit in a pre-approved project, such that a portion of the residential unit can be used for the person's business. They may have a limited number of employees, and they may have a limited number of visitors or clients. The current home occupation standards, which across the city, do not allow employees or clients. There are standards that limit the extent of the business within the residence. And again, it will be on a case-by-case basis through a conditional use approval that will either go to the Planning and Zoning Board or the Historic Preservation Board. Several of the projects that are in the pipeline coming to the city, the developers have voiced interest in having this professional office standard established as part of their plan development. Hopefully you will see one of the first ones in the next couple of months. It is a little bit cutting edge and out of the box, but based on where we're going and a lot of for the need of smaller office spaces, this does allow someone to have a home or more than likely a condominium or apartment that within that unit could have some modicum or small area that is a professional office. And as their office grows or their business grows, then they may branch out and actually maybe do a brick and mortar or lease their own space somewhere else. And we saw that it will be a good thing in response to what's been happening sort of organically in response to the COVID pandemic. So if you have more questions about that, we can return to this a little bit more. Do you have any more things to go over, Erin? I don't remember.
We just have one more item, which is just off-street parking requirements. These were some very minor things. We did a big rewrite of parking, and there were just two small little things we needed to clarify and clean up from that big reorganization that we did earlier this year.
So we're here to answer your questions.
What exactly is the parking requirement for accessory dwelling units?
Yes, Madam Mayor, the parking, what we did is we clarified the parking for accessory dwelling units within the parking standards themselves. And then we clarified the unit size. So some of these things were in other sections, so we consolidated them into an easier to reference so that people had all the information that they needed.
Can you summarize, please, for the public, what exactly that means to them and their neighborhoods?
Okay, before we go there, Mayor, the changes do not allow any accessory dwelling units where they are not already allowed. This has not opened up accessory dwelling units to be in single family residential or other areas where they're now prohibited. It is just providing standards where they are allowed, and they are allowed in a number of multifamily districts, as well as a single family, two family 14 district. So there's no new area of the city that's being opened up for dwelling units.
So the standards that we're adding and consolidating for secondary or accessory dwelling units. And as William stated, there's no new area that's going to be allowed to have them. It's just for what is already now. That would be, the language would be the unit size before, and we added that and shall be a minimum of 400 square feet. 400 square feet is our minimum unit size. It was not in this accessory dwelling unit section. So we added it as it was a little duplicative, but we went ahead and added it in there. So if you wanted an accessory dwelling unit, you wouldn't have to go to a different area of the code to figure out what your minimum unit size would be.
No, I
We
appreciate
also
it.
added the requirement to make it really clear is if an accessory dwelling unit were to come in outside of the historic district, there was a requirement that it should relate, but not that it should be architecturally compatible with the principal structure, which would be the single family home. And so that was clarified. And then we also clarified that all secondary dwelling units shall meet the city's minimum housing code requirements. They already had to, but again, this was part of the consolidation of that.
Okay, thank you. I just received a lot of questions. People were concerned. That's why I just needed you to state that. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Continue on. Is that it? Hello?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, Madam Mayor. Yes, we're good, done.
Okay, thank you. Any commissioner comments? Now,
Madam Mayor, you'd have to take a motion now before comments.
I just said that.
I'm sorry. I had someone here.
What? Before we go to discussion, I need a motion and a second.
Okay.
I made the exception to do the presentation first, but I still need the motion and a second. I'll entertain a motion. So we can talk.
Thanks, DOA.
Come on, kids. We're here to work. We're here to work. It's nothing controversial here. Clarification. Okay, motion fails for lack of.
I'll, for discussion,
Will you make the motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the changes.
You can always change the motions later. Do I have a second?
But this,
Second.
We've got, hold on a second. Hang on a sec. I needed to get a second first. So Commissioner Robinson made the motion. Commissioner Blockson made the second. Okay. Now Commissioner Robinson.
I just want to make sure that we understand that this is going to eliminate any, unless right now, it eliminates any ADUs in single family units, in single family zoning. That's all. I just want to make sure that we understand that when we talk about housing, and it won't happen.
William.
As we stated before, ADUs are not allowed in the single family residential zoning district. This change does not propose adding them to that district. That will be something we can discuss at some other time in the future.
Yeah.
It would require a comprehensive plan change and extensive review. And I think that's, again, going back to the conversation earlier this evening, that should be a discussion among the various neighborhoods as to their wishes for or against ADUs. Staff would not bring that forward without actually reaching out and speaking to every single neighborhood that would be affected, which actually would be every single neighborhood in the city.
Okay, and William,
Sure.
That doesn't count for existing accessory dwelling units that are in the single family neighborhoods, right?
Those are grandfathered non-conforming uses.
Okay.
They won't be able to be expanded. They will exist as they are today. If they were legally permitted at the time they were built.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
Okay, a couple questions on ADUs. So you just alluded to staff possibly bringing ADUs back for a conversation. I thought we had a conversation and we heard very clearly from the community that they weren't interested in ADUs. Is that something we're bringing back in the future?
Only at your direction.
Okay. Parking. So this addresses parking for pre-existing ADUs or
Any new
ADUs?
ones.
I'm sorry?
It affects anyone that wants to build a new one. They would have to provide parking for it.
Okay, but
In mixed use.
anything, any older ADU out there is pre-existing and grandfathered in, and parking is parking. Okay. Talk to me about the home occupation. Again, 8 years ago, we heard, from some residents that wanted home occupation everywhere in the city, and especially my district, came out and said, absolutely not. How is that any different today than it was back then?
This proposal is only for mixed use zoning districts. It does not affect single family residential, single family, 2-family 14, MF 20, which is a multifamily district, and multifamily 30. It is mixed use districts are along Dixie Highway, along Lake and Lucerne, along parts of Federal Highway, and then 10th Avenue North and 6th Avenue South, east of Dixie Highway. That's the only areas this would apply to. And again, it is on a project site by site. It's not a by right use. A person who would like to have one has to come in and go through the plan and review process at a public hearing for conditional use. If a project comes forward that has apartments in it, let's say there's one proposed on Dixie Highway, that developer or the person that wants to develop it could include in their plan development package a provision to allow professional offices, as long as they include the provisions that are outlined in the ordinance that dictate how they can be operated and how much of the space of a unit can be used for them.
Does this affect sober homes at all? Does this allow a sober home, a business license in an area as office space, as running a sober home, as intake, any of that we've seen in the city of Lake Worth Beach?
Well, we don't have a use called sober home, so I can't
Understand that, but
business license for
we're
that.
calling it today.
It does
This
exclude
is-
medical. It does specifically exclude
And beyond
medical.
that, it excludes residential, like you couldn't have it and it provide 24-hour care for somebody. It's a professional office, like an architect, a landscape architect, an attorney, a marketing person. It's a fairly limited array of uses that are already allowed in the mixed use districts.
So intake would be part of it. They would
No.
they would be able, sure they would. Why would intake be any different than an attorney's office?
Because we're not allowing the medical office as part of the professional office.
When they do intake, they're not doing medical.
It doesn't really allow for patients. It doesn't allow for patients. It would allow for maybe medical billing, as an administrative use. We can show you. Would you like me to share the language, Commissioner Amoroso?
I'm sorry?
Would you like me to share the text?
I just want to make sure that we're not opening the door for some of the things we've already seen, which are medical billing. Usually medical billing is hiring a lot of people.
Okay, they're in.
Or a lot of movement.
Unless you have a residence that's hundreds of thousands of square feet, this professional office is only going to allow, possibly even in our biggest apartment, 2 employees and the owner. It's very specific on how much of the apartment can be used for the professional office. There's a use and occupancy requirement inspection. There's a little plan that outlays it. And again, the property owner, and if it were a condo, the condo association would have to approve. It's specifically written, if a current condominium wanted to allow professional office home occupations, they'd have to vote as a board and request that of the city, and again, go through the public hearing process, either before the Planning and Zoning Board or the Historic Resource Preservation Board. This is not an easy thing to get approved. Every one of them is going to be reviewed individually.
But after it's approved and it's morphed into something else, how do you police it?
We will have to tackle that with co-compliance, just as we do with anything else. that has morphed into something it's not supposed to be.
Okay.
Sometimes it's easier to get forgiveness than it is permission.
Any other questions? City manager?
William, thank you, Madam Mayor. Go back to the reason that this was being considered to put into the zoning districts that you mentioned. From a market standpoint, what's changed from the last couple of years to now? What do you see?
Well, there's been a couple of things evolving over the past decade, more than not. Young people or young business owners or entrepreneurs are often starting their businesses in their home. And once they get beyond a business that requires more than just themselves, they have to find an office space somewhere. There are smaller businesses that need a little bit of a leg up, that may have 1 employee, 2 employees, may have a couple of customers. All of that is restricted and not allowed in the home occupation as it is now, though those types of uses are allowed in the mixed use districts. And then as we move forward into what's happened over the past year and a half, people are working from home. Well, technically they're not supposed to be working from home unless they have a home occupation scheduled with the city. And again, that home occupation as it is now does not allow them to have any employees or any clients or any visitors to the property. In looking at taking reference from some things that I've seen on TV, how certain young or young startup businesses have started. They've started a husband and a wife have started a small business and they grew into 1 employee. Maybe they have a couple of people as their clients, and it's a great way to incubate entrepreneurial efforts in the city. And hopefully, as that business takes off, then they will move out of their business, out of their residence, and do a brick and mortar office or rent some space in the city, or maybe we'll even have a developer build an office building at some point that they could utilize. But there's a great interest in a greater degree of flexibility when it comes to professional office in the home, especially in response to what COVID has done to the economic environment.
So clearly this isn't in the single family residential areas where the structures weren't anticipating this kind of use. Is this?
Again, it's only in the mixed use districts, which covers maybe 20% of the city.
Is this more akin to the live work lofts?
Yes, a live work loft is a form of this.
Okay. All right. Just for that clarification. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Would this actually overlay the work live spaces?
The live work spaces actually have more uses that are allowed to them because they are being built from the ground up, as you might remember. So they don't go through the professional office occupation. The live work units that are at the art lofts allow some things that aren't professional office because they are looking at the underlying zoning, and many of those were built with a commercially developed space versus it all being residential. So there is a bit of a difference.
And are those permitted now?
Which?
The artwork live spaces in the CRA district west of the tracks.
Many of them are permitted to allow a business to operate there. We have a musician, we have a sculptor, there was a professional office, but the spaces on the first floor, which were intended for the commercial use, had to be developed and built to a commercial standard.
And they're being charged a business tax receipt at this time?
Most of them are. We have a couple that may be lacking the appropriate business license and they are involved with co-compliance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we've got a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any?
Madam Mayor, I have one comment.
Just asking. Yeah. Okay.
Richard Stowe wrote about chapter 23. He pointed out the unit size for secondary accessory dwelling unit. It says unit size, the habitable floor area for secondary units shall not exceed 60% of the habitable floor area of the primary residence and shall be minimum of 400 square feet. Dear Madam Mayor Triolo and City Commissioners, please remove the 60% formula of habitable floor area formula from an accessory dwelling unit. allowing an 1,800 square foot ADU in the backyard of a 3,000 square foot single-family home was not what many intended when supporting ADUs. Also, the language does not make it clear that these allowances do not apply to single-family residential zoning. Richard Stowe. Thank you. Madam Mayor, you're muted.
I'm sorry. That just pretty much negates everything that William just told us. William, can you speak to that last comment?
Well, if you read all of it in the code, which I don't believe he might have, basically everything he said is not included in the ordinance. We don't allow them in single family. There are limits. That's why it's an accessory dwelling unit. It can't be but so big. We have floor area ratio for a lot. We have lot coverage items, a whole plethora of other things that are in the code that would limit the size of an accessory dwelling unit. And again, they are not allowed in single family residential zoning districts.
Okay, thank you. All right, we've got a motion on the floor and a second. All those in favor state so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very
Mayor
much.
Commissioners.
All right, City Attorney, did you have a report?
No, Madam Mayor.
City Manager, I see you have some items.
Yes, Madam Mayor, and I apologize, there wasn't some backup for previously on this, and I hope to get that the next meeting. But I have received a lot of requests, it seems, during this season about what some of the capital investments and what we're doing in the city and have done across a variety of things. That includes the neighborhood road program, what's going on in the Park of Commerce, the sales tax expenditures and projects, what CDBG projects we've done, the SHRIP program, of which Ed went over and talked about all the investments that have been made and we're making in the electric utility, the water, sewer, and drainage, as well as the performance contract investments. And I've kind of thrown out there, it's over $150 million. I was hoping to have more detail on that because of the budgeting and the way we work the capital and some of the projects actually have multiple funding sources. I wasn't definitive on those numbers, so I didn't feel comfortable bringing the written report to you. But I want to bring that back at the next meeting because I think besides the request and interest in that seems to be occurring right now, it's important to demonstrate the amount of infrastructure investment and commitment that the city under your direction has really made into the city. So I'll bring that back at the next meeting and have that laid out. It's just been difficult going from spreadsheet and budget and 5-year programs into more of a narrative format that people can really get their mind around and understand. But it is substantial nonetheless, and it's something to be proud of. The second item was to sort of give you an update on the Leadership Academy. This is a program that y'all have wanted and had anticipated. If it hadn't been for, like everything else that's been affected, COVID, the pandemic, we would have already maybe had 2 or 3 classes. So we are going to be moving forward. We have a curriculum, a syllabus of taking residents and business owners through a program. We'll be asking y'all to participate as well as the staff. At this time, we're not in the first class anticipating doing field site visits just yet. Hopefully that'll change. And what we would like to do is we're going to put the finishing touches on the application and how we're going to push it out to the residents so that we can start to schedule the first class in the next month and a half or so and get that program kick-started and underway and get everybody in the groove and let people really see behind the scenes what goes on in their city. It's a good form of transparency, but it's also a good exercise in helping people understand some of the difficulties that y'all face up here and some of the challenges that as a city, as we move forward, some of the conversations and the lively conversations that we've even had tonight, there's good reason we're having some of these angst, and it's not a bad thing. We're dealing with problems that will affect the future of how this city moves forward, and its financial sustainability, and all that ties into everything from programming that we want to do to how the schools are performing, to how your neighborhood street is safe and traffic calming, everything else. So as much of that as we can help people understand and get a firsthand from the horse's mouth, so to speak. We're excited about it. Again, apologize. It's been a rough year, as you know, but it's a commitment that we made and we want to follow through. So that'll be coming forward as well, Madam Mayor, and I'm excited about the leadership program. We are working with the real folks, and I'll just throw this in. Their schedule has been pretty swamped as well. So I know that we have some follow-up conversations with them, and I expect to be bringing back Real 102 to you for consideration in contract form and implementation. I did have a brief conversation with the staff team that met with y'all when we had the Real 101. We've gotten some positive feedback. We also are going to be walking them through more of a process to talk about what they perceive we need to be doing in the organization and maybe how we do some things out in the community. So while we look to now pivot on the outside with y'all as we go into the community to harvest input from the affected parties about what they want to see as far as equity and race equity. And we will be watching with great interest the program that the Sheriff's Office is bringing forward with the Criminal Justice Commission and Barbara Cheeves, which y'all know her and watch that program. That as this data and information keeps coming in, and as we work with Healthier Lake Worth to go through our own workshops, that'll really provide a lot of material and data for us to consider in how we move forward with our visioning sessions and where you want to resource and do things. So I'm excited. Sometimes I do get excited about data and information and I get ahead of myself, but I think we're on track at least with those two things. So better days are ahead. It's been a tough year. It's been a tough set of circumstances. To a person that even the people that get mad at me and to everyone sitting up here, everyone loves this city. They love calling it home. And I'm grateful for all that positive energy, even though we don't always agree. Commissioner Bloxham said, we don't always disagree, but we don't have to be disagreeable. So looking forward to getting some projects moving and everybody pulling together as a team. So your staff is here ready and willing, and they're working hard. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor? Good night, everybody. Thank you.